Okay, once we have our dimensions set, the rest of the configurations can be handled here in this edit page, this edit configurations page. But before we do that, we're going to explore the global settings. So these are the settings that are going to be managed throughout the project. And of course, you might want one cabinet to have a different settings from the rest, which is totally possible. But for now, let's explore our case materials or any plywood that is regionally distributed here in the Northeast. And the most common one we found is going to be 3/4 pre-finished maple, although you can use any material on our list here or any other material that you want. We typically recommend that for the carcass, we're going with the 3/4 material, and that's just because you can run into problems with the hardware not functioning correctly with thicker or thinner carcass. But you can select this if you want, if you know how to work around it, if you know how to customize your configuration, you can do it how you want. Front material, you have the same list of options. In this case, 3/4 Medex is the brand name moisture resistant MDF, which is suitable for kitchens and bathrooms. Back panel is going to be our pre-finished maple again, 1/2 inch. Moving down, we have the joint method. The joint method is something that is typically a shop specific. Some shops would use biscuits for alignment, which is how we use them, and then screwed together butt joints. You can, of course, select no connector and then use whichever type of joinery that you want. Biscuit screw connection we found to be fast and strong and reliable. You might opt to remove this screw if you have a finished side panel and you don't want to see the screw hole. Back panels, inset would be for removable back. This is useful if you have the back panel needs to be installed after the cabinet or it might be removable. Applied is where the back panel is basically planted onto the back of the cabinet and screwed in. For plywood core cabinets, that is veneer core plywood cabinets, the applied back panel with screws is usually strong enough for most applications. If you're using particle board or MDF for your cabinet, then this might not be as strong. Rabbited usually is when the side panel is meant to be finished and exposed all along the side. Tongue and groove is where the back panel is inset, and this will be typically if you're making wall hanging cabinets and you want to have some recess on the back of the cabinet for a French cleat or other mounting system. For this island, applied is perfect. The edge banding, again, we have a range of options which are commonly available, and there are thousands of other edge bandings that could be used, and we're using automatic edge bander. If you don't see the kind of edge banding that you'd like to use, feel free to reach out and we may be able to accommodate you. Again, we have the same range of options for the front edge. In this case, we're painting because we're using MDF, so we don't need an edge banding. The hinge plate has either the cross, which is the typical European hinge mounting plate, or the inline, which is the newer version. It's a little bit nicer looking. It's the one we typically use for all of our hardware, including drawer glides and hinge plates. We use the 5 millimeter system screw mounting. So it's a 5 millimeter hole for these hinge plates. And then for the drawers, you have the choice of ordering 5/8 or 1/2 inch or none. This will, of course, change the size of the drawer box. If you know anything about how undermount glides are configured, you have to add 1/4 of an inch to the width if you're using a 5/8 box. But this will become apparent why we allow this selection later on. Even if we're not supplying the drawer boxes for you, you'll want to know the correct dimension of that for your own purposes. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Now, before we move on, we have to apply the settings, and it says select the items to apply. And in this case, we'll go ahead and select all and then apply. And now all of the items that are using those settings are configured. For the most part, this is our whole project. There's a few other settings that we'll click through and see what we need to change.